This is really fun to spend Friday during lunchtime with you all, and of course, talking about a topic that's near and dear to my heart. I don't think there's any shortage of stress around here, so perhaps this is a topic that can resonate for you. As I tend to do with my talks on mindfulness, there will be a practice in here. Always like to keep things a little bit experiential, but I am going to share kind of some of the principles and thinking around how can we work with stress using strategies of mindfulness. Yeah, so 2023, I guess I don't even need to say, egg prices. I'll just leave it at that. Things are just constantly changing around us. I think there's just this urgent pace in which we are really forced to live. There's this energy of freneticism. And I mean, this has just been increasing and increasing, but I feel like in 2023, it just went, kind of hog wild. And it's just had me ask this question of what do we so urgently need to accomplish, right? And where are the spaces that we can rest and refuel and rebalance? I've been asking these questions for a long time, because I really believe that paying attention to our centeredness and our groundedness and our stability is the most important starting point for our lives and for our work. And we forget that sometimes, especially for those of us who are working in the service-oriented professions like we all are. But how do we do that? That's really the question that I want to talk about here. How do we find that inner stability and stabilize that ship when there are so many forces that seem to be knocking us off balance? So I am going to share my presentation here, and I encourage anyone to raise your hand or put a question in the chat box, or even, and I'm fine because we're a smaller group, interrupting me if you want to get clarification or explore something further. So please feel free to do that. I'm going to share with you in this presentation that, our stress actually lives in our bodies. You may or may not be fully aware of that. And so because of that, the way to manage stress is actually through our bodies, through our awareness of our breathing and our sensations and the emotions that all originate in the body. So you also may or may not know this, but the majority of our physicians' visits are due to stress-related symptoms. So if we're feeling that ratcheted anxiety, that adrenaline, or, lack of sleep, or there are just so many, issues and discomforts, we can really take a look at, well, how are we managing our stress? In fact, there's some really interesting research on allostatic load that has shown us that our telomere length, and telomeres are the DNA sequences that cap the end of chromosomes. So our telomere length can actually be shortened on account of stress. And this impacts our lifespan. It shortens our lifespan. At one point, we thought that stress was all in the mind. And we've heard all sorts of stories. The doctor told me my stress is all in the mind. But there is so much research now that shows there is a porousness between mind and body. There's a porousness between mind and environment too. So tons of implications for health here that I won't go into now. But point being that we all experience stress, and stress ends up living in our bodies. In fact, I've been dealing with a little stressful situation in my household. My 12-year-old's been stressed out lately. This is a third world problem. We got him a cool gaming PC for Christmas, and the cooling pump doesn't work, so we have to send it back. And it's caused a lot of family tension because Aiden is in such a rush to get the problem solved. Of course, he's a 12-year-old. So I talked through his stress with him. Aiden, what can help you? Just cool it a little bit. Just calm down a little bit. And of course, he says to cuddle with our dogs. That is his answer. And how can you not feel better when you're looking at these guys right here? I mean, first of all, they calm our nervous system, just even looking at them. But second of all, there's a lot of wisdom that Aiden's identified, because we can all find these outer comforts that can help us relax and be present. Maybe for us, it's spaces in nature, being with friends, doing our art, or being with animals. There's so many things. And this is really important when we're facing stress, is what brings us comfort, right? How can we intentionally calm our nervous system? But what I really want to talk about here is how we can actually use our minds to relax with stress. And the words relax and stress don't usually go together, but this is exactly what mindfulness teaches us. How to be present, not to push things away, how to relax into the moment rather than getting pushed around by the forces of stress. So there's a saying here, we cannot stop the waves of change, but we can learn to surf. But how do we do that? So in order to ride the waves, we really have to find our way back to presence. In order to access the stability that comes with presence, we have to become observers, right? Because we get carried away with all of the things that are happening in our brains and on the outside of us. And so we just get tossed around in the waves. So we have to become observers, and we have to learn to notice what is happening in our thoughts, in our bodies, what's arising, because our bodies are there to tell us what's going on. Something's really off here. We need to pay attention. We need to pay attention to our hearts. What are these emotions that are coming up? And all of this, as I already said, lives in our bodies. They're very somatic. And if we can stop and bring awareness to whatever is coming up and pay attention, we can actually access a lot of information if we're willing to listen. Now we have to listen without judgment. There's no point in seeing the anxiety rising within us and saying, darn it, I wasn't going to do that again, right? I thought I was going to stay calm today. So dropping that judgment and bringing kindness into the moment. So rather than getting caught in the anger or frustration or the stress of something not going our way, like the computer not working right, the cooling pump being broken, right? We can notice what's coming up in the moment. And if we're even more skilled, we can send ourselves compassion right there in the moment. It's really powerful. So some of you have already been to many of my mindfulness classes, and this is going to be a little bit of a repeat. But for those of you who have not spent much time in the world of mindfulness, just to point out, there's so much misconception out there about what the heck mindfulness is. And so I use this slide to kind of clarify that a little bit. And so I just want to start by asking, which of these bubbles can you relate to? The one on the left side or the one on the right side? And that's kind of a rhetoric question, because my sense is most of you can probably relate more to the bubble on the left-hand side, because this is really where we spend a lot of our time. The bubble on the right-hand side is that dog, and it's suggesting that somehow the dog is peaceful and zen-like and all empty. And I want to point out right now that mindfulness is not actually about getting to this dog zen-like stage of emptiness, because that's not really how it works. We're simply trying to become aware of all of that jumble in our heads. Just awareness without judging. We don't need to be the quiet, empty-minded person. We just need to know what exactly is causing us all of this stress, or how are we reacting to this stress? And if we don't know the content of our minds, how do we even operate out of rationality? How can we make wise decisions? We're just being dragged along by the habits and behaviors that we have mindfully relied upon. So being mindful is just being aware, and then we can bring tools to help us settle. And I put those glasses up there in the right-hand corner because I just want to emphasize this point. We can become observers of whatever's coming up for us when we're experiencing stressful circumstances. And that observation goes a really long way. Just by noticing already settles the nervous system. Just by taking a breath settles the nervous system. But we have to have a starting point. So the fundamental definition of mindfulness is really just present moment awareness. Present moment awareness. And as I said, awareness is very much a somatic thing, because if you just take a breath right now, you're present in your body. Number one, you're present if you're paying attention to your breath, but number two, you're actually present in your body, right? So we become aware of our breath, we become aware of our body, we become aware of the thoughts. And we might even, if we can take a moment just to become aware, we might even start naming those thoughts. Oh my goodness, I'm just in planning mode. I'm driving myself nuts in planning mode, or I'm just worrying. I'm worrying constantly today, or I'm fretting, or I'm feeling anxiety, right? We can name it in a simple way, because naming it takes the power off of it. If we're feeling anxious, we say, oh, hey, there's anxiety. I know you. We can sit down for a cup of tea with our anxiety in our minds and just take a look at each other, right? We don't have to get caught in the waves of all of it. And so our inner world is revealed to us as soon as we can get quiet and pay attention. So mindfulness can help us do a few things. It can help us get present. If we're present, even with all of the discomfort of the stress, which it's possible to be present with the discomfort of stress, we can be much more available to ourselves. And how often have you just named your stress? Like, oh, I'm feeling really uncomfortable, or I'm feeling activated, right? And so just that awareness right there, it kind of softens it a little bit. But mindfulness can also help us manage our stress. It can do more than bring us to presence. It can actually help us manage stress. And I'm going to unpack this a little bit. So this slide shows that this little arrow in the upper side of the slide is what happens to us all every day. I mean, they're just circumstances, just our work. Alone is stressful. Attending meetings, getting to meetings on time, making sure we can finish up our work for the day, follow through, whatever comes up that we get triggered. There just are a lot of regular things that happen every single day. But what we end up doing is we end up fueling the fires of those existing stressors with our anxiety, with our fearful thoughts. What if I can't finish this? What if this person does this to me? With the blaming thoughts. Why did this person do this to me? Or what's wrong with me that I can't handle this? That arrow on the bottom, we don't really need to add this kind of fuel to our existing stress. And in fact, we have the choice to not, but we can only choose to not add all of that extra anxiety and fear. We only have that choice if we're aware that we're doing it. And then we can calm it down. We can make a choice. Because stress is something that triggers us without trying to trigger us. We have what's called an amygdala in our brain, and this is the seat of fear. It's what's kept us alive, able to survive over millennia. So we know when to get out of harm's way. But when we get triggered, it sets off our fight, flight, freeze reaction. So our bodies can get really tense. In fact, you can see here all of the ways that our bodies react to what our amygdala is telling us. Get out of the way, stay safe, you better react fast. And we get, tense and ready to get out of harm's way. But this is not adaptive in the long term. If we're not aware that we're triggered and our bodies are then activated, then we play out some of these symptoms that end up leading us to the doctor's office if they're chronic over time, that we're constantly activated. Sometimes we even react to stress in maybe ways we don't want to. When we feel all this discomfort, we might self-medicate or numb. We might reach for food or substances, whatever ways it is that we want to kind of disassociate from the discomfort. Some of us seek distractions. Some of us may work 24/7. Some of us may hit the social media hard or do the internet shopping or whatever it is. And when we really stop and look at it, we have to ask ourselves, why are we doing this? What might serve ourselves better? But again, it's the awareness piece. Some of us might just flee from discomfort at all costs, and some of us tend to just isolate and disconnect. And so there are all of these kind of outcomes that come with how we habitually react to stress. But what mindfulness can help us understand is that if we can bring awareness to kind of the moment that we even remotely feel triggered, or we start to feel the anxiety rising, or we start to feel angry, or whatever it is, if we can bring mindful awareness to that moment, we can actually slow down or even stop that cycle of anxiety. And I use this acronym. I really appreciate how simple this is. It's STOP, because it takes us through the steps that are really helpful to slow things down. I mean, first of all, you have to just stop what you're doing. If you're feeling triggered or you're feeling the weight of things and you just know you need a little bit of space, just stop. And in that moment, and literally stopping can be sitting right here at your desk, something at work is triggering you, just pulling your chair away a little bit and literally taking a breath, taking a deep diaphragmatic breath, 1 breath or 3 breaths. It slows things down. But the third step is really important. It's to observe what is happening in my body in this moment. What's coming up for me? Again, a lot of information there. And that's really a full stop right there. When you've taken a breath and you can just pay attention. And really from that point, if you stop that cycle of anxiety, from there, you are able to make a very rational and reasonable decision about what it is you need to move forward. Sometimes it is, I need to take a walk now, or I need to shut down my work for the day, or I need to pick up the phone and talk this through with somebody. But again, bringing that rational brain online requires slowing down sometimes and noticing what's happening. So people tend to think of the nervous system as just kind of one big entity, which it is, but it has components of it. And when we think about stress in the nervous system, we tend to think about the sympathetic side of our nervous system, which is what gets activated, what causes us to get into fight or flight mode. But what's important is that we also understand there's another side of it. It's the parasympathetic nervous system. It's the side that allows us to rest and digest. So if we get ratcheted far up, if we start taking a few deep breaths, or we go out and take a walk intentionally, we actually can balance our nervous system, because we can put the brakes on the sympathetic nervous system side of things, and we can increase the activation of the parasympathetic nervous system side of things, the rest and digest side, and we can really have a direct impact very quickly on our nervous system, but we have to be aware of that. If our nervous system is calmer, our minds are going to get a little more tranquil. You may or may not know this, but we have a boatload of thoughts every single day. Thoughts I think of thoughts as secretions. They're just constantly getting secreted, whether or not we are trying. That's just how our monkey minds are working. And most of these thoughts are negative, right? And so we don't need to let our minds have full reign. We actually, if we're calmer, we have our nervous system a little bit more in balance, and we're bringing awareness to that monkey mind, we actually can calm our activated minds. This is possible. So really what I want to suggest here, and this may be a new way of looking at things or it may not, but it's that, our circumstances don't have as much pull over us as we think they do. We always think, if only I could change this, if only I could make this person do it this way, if only. But really the lesson, and I think one of the biggest lessons of mindfulness, is that our thoughts and our reactions, not necessarily our circumstances, are actually creating most of our stress, right? Our circumstances are what they are. It's how we're reacting to them. So here's a formula that can help a little bit understand this. I think this is useful, but it says that, the initial pain, the stressor, the difficulty, whatever it is just what happens. I mean, as that small arrow showed, we're going to have stress and circumstances in our lives, but we increase our suffering exponentially by our reaction and resistance to it. So this is referred to as a second dart. I mean, the first dart is thrown, a deadline that we didn't expect came up. Okay, that's what it is. But then how much we react to it actually amplifies our suffering. So there is a saying that pain is inevitable, but suffering is optional. And I added the word stress in there. Stress is inevitable, but to the extent to which we suffer, that is fairly optional. And it's not to say that, we're human. We are going to throw those darts at our pain and our stress. We are going to do that. But the more we become aware of how we're reacting and kind of our habitual behaviors when certain triggers come at us, the more we can actually kind of decrease the number of darts that we're throwing. So this is really powerful, and it puts the onus of stress reduction in our hands, right? It's very empowering because there are tools to use when we feel like things are getting out of control. So this is the place where we get to do a little experiential exercise. And when I refer to meditation as coming to our senses, I really mean that, because the gateway to presence is through our body. It's through our breath. It's through noticing our body sensations and even the emotions that are coming up. And my favorite definition of mindfulness is a bell that reminds us to stop and silently listen. Because that's exactly what mindfulness is. And sometimes we really literally need to set a bell. We need to set an app. Ding, it's 12:30, ding. Okay, that is my mindful moment time. Whether we, go sit on the floor, go sit on the couch, go take a walk, take a few deep breaths, whatever that is. Those bells, metaphorically or, really using apps or whatever, are incredibly powerful to help us come to our senses. So if you want to give a little bit of this a try for just a few moments, I'm going to lead you through just a little experiential moment of mindfulness. I can yap away all I want at this, but until you actually begin to pay attention and notice what is coming up in your breath and your body, it's really hard to understand the power of this. So I just encourage you to go with the flow here a little bit. Set your phones aside, give yourself about 4.5 minutes to do this practice. And to be able to do this practice, we just need to take a pause. So step one is feeling free to let go of whatever it is that you think you need to be doing right now. And you might take a deep breath right now that signifies to your brain that you can let go just for a few minutes. That breath tells your brain and your body, all right, this is my time to just be and sit. And you might find a posture that supports you in a moment of mindfulness. Perhaps you notice your feet connected to the ground. You could even imagine roots extending from your feet into the ground like the roots of a tree. Feeling grounded is really helpful with this practice. And maybe you rest your hands gently in your lap, and you might lengthen your spine a little bit and relax your shoulders. Maybe there can be some relaxing through the belly. And from this relaxed but alert position, You may want to shut your eyes if that feels comfortable for you. And take a few deep breaths. So see if you can match your long, deep in breaths with your long out breaths. Maybe you want to count to 4 on the in breath and 4 on the out breath. One more long, deep, matched breath. And then just letting your breath resume in its natural rhythm. Just take a moment or two to watch your breath and feel the movement of the in-breath and the out-breath collecting your attention. You're not trying to make anything happen here. You're not trying to force anything. Just observing yourself breathing. Now you might move your attention through your body. Maybe do a little body scan. Just feeling the sensations from your toes up to your head. Just scanning your body for sensations. What do you notice as you're doing this body scan? And if the body feels contracted or tense, you might sense the possibility of relaxing wherever you feel the tension. You might even ask yourself, is there anything that I can let go of right now? Just in this moment, you can pick it up later. But what can I let go of right now? Maybe just notice what that feels like. The letting go. So we can close out the practice, maybe just taking one more deep belly breath. And stretching your body out. Coming back into our shared space. Noticing now what feels a little bit different. And maybe you want to write in the chat box. What feels a little bit different? What did you notice? What came up for you? There's never one thing that can happen. There's a whole multitude of things that could be happening in those moments. So Allison's mind slowed. It wasn't racing as much. Darren felt so much more relaxed. Glenda found that there was less clutter in her mind. Callie found it hard to stop future planning. Oh, I get it, Callie. That's exactly right. And all you have to do is say, oh, planning. There you are. Hi, I know you, right? And Amy found slower breathing and less tension. And Callie is feeling some more space now. And Illyria felt refreshed and deeply connected with herself. So many of these things are absolutely possible. And it's also possible for your anxiety to get ratcheted up or the planning to speed up once you stop, right? But that's where our kindness and compassion comes in. Just bringing awareness to that. It's like, oh, okay, and that too. But if we can really give ourselves permission and we can feel the letting go physically happen in our bodies, we can actually access a moment of peace on so many different levels. It is possible, but it does take a commitment to stop. I mean, I don't know about you. How many of you really had a hard time saying, I'm going to do this for 4.5 minutes? Like Sue said, I'm just going to do this. It's uncomfortable sometimes, and it's awkward, and it requires commitment. But that's where it's at, and that's where the change is. So, how do I go back here? Sorry about that. So perspective. Mindfulness gives us perspective. And I have a sense you kind of got a little kind of snippet of that through that little practice there, because we tend to identify with the problems in our lives. We tend to over-identify with our stress and our anxiety and our anger and what's going wrong and what's not right. And we even use that to describe ourselves as like, I'm an anxious person. I'm a stressed person. I'm a depressed person. But what we don't recognize is these are momentary states. And if we start observing them, we can see they're very temporary and they can go through us with a little bit of kind attention. So there was once a meditation teacher who opened a class by drawing a V on a white sheet of paper. He asked those who were present what he had drawn. Most responded that it was a bird. No, he told them, it is the sky with a bird flying through it. And I absolutely love that story. I find it so instructive because when we are feeling stressed out, our attention narrows and we perceive objects in the foreground. A bird, a thought, a strong feeling. In these moments, we don't perceive the sky, the background of our experience, the open awareness that we actually have access to. So the good news is that through our mindfulness practice, we can intentionally incline our mind toward a more open attention that includes the stress. We don't have to get rid of the stress, but it also includes the sunshine and the breeze and the sweet, cute, cuddly dogs or whatever it is in that moment that we have access to. And there's another aspect of mindfulness as well, and that is choice. It is the idea that we actually have a choice in how we can feel and how we can manage our stress. So this is another story. This is from a meditation teacher, Jack Kornfield. He talked about as a monk in the Thai forest, when he was a monk, he and others were out with their teachers collecting alms food when they came upon a boulder. His teacher asked, "Is that boulder heavy?" Of course, the monk said, "Yes, it is heavy." And the teacher smiled and said, "No, if you don't pick it up, it is not heavy," right? I think that is just the perfect demonstration of choice. We have a choice. Do we pick up the boulder? Or do we just keep walking, right? And of course, Viktor Frankl, I mean, one of survivors of the Holocaust gives us this wisdom: when we are no longer able to change a circumstance, and we cannot always change our situations, we are challenged to change ourselves, putting that onus back on us. So it is a choice. And so in the nature of choices, I ask you, what helps you foster well-being? What helps you work with some of these challenges and stressors in your life? And answers are everywhere. People are different. For some people, it's connection and, giving back in the volunteer work. Some people are doing a lot of self-care. Some people love learning. There are so many things that can help to foster well-being. And we can bring mindfulness to all of these activities and spaces, and it accentuates the joy of them even more. But it also is important to know that whatever you practice grows stronger. And I'm talking about this on a neurological level, because neuroscience used to tell us not so long ago that our brains didn't change after a certain period of time. You can't change someone's brain, right? They can't learn new things. Can't teach an old dog new tricks. But neuroplasticity and the science of neuroscience, the science of the brain has exploded to help us understand there is so much plasticity in our brain. And so what we choose to do, if we repeat that again and again and again, can change the way our brains work. So that if we sit down for 5 minutes and we do some mindful breathing, it gets easier over time, right? Or if we shut off the computer and take a walk for lunch, that too gets easy over time. It becomes a different kind of habit, because repeated experiences can change our brains. There's a saying, neurons that fire together wire together. The more we do, the stronger it grows. And on the flip side, that's true. Inactive synapses wither away through neuronal pruning. So you use it or you lose it, right? We can change our habits. We can change our behaviors. And so really the question for you is, what do you want to bring into your life? How much mindfulness do you want to bring? Do you want to bring compassion? Do you want to bring self-care? How much do you believe you can change your own brains to be able to manage some of the things that come up? So that is really what I want to leave you all with. And I am excited to say that the Living Mindfully online program, if anyone ever wanted to dive deeper into all of this, there are 7 entire modules on working with mindfulness around these kinds of issues through CSU Online. And yay, Allison announced it, but the companion book that I wrote for that program is coming out very soon. There's the cover, you can't really see it, in October. So I'm excited to share that work with you. And I will stop share and just see if we have any questions or things we want to reflect on for the rest of the time. Or if you're just so peacefully zenned out like that dog, you are just ready to go curl up and take a nap. That's good too.
Sue, I just want to thank you for doing this. Absolutely, please, people add to the conversation. This was so helpful. I think the new year started and I had full expectations that I would go in maybe feeling more refreshed, and I think I'm feeling more stressed than ever. So taking that breath and remembering to center myself is a really, really great thing. So Callie, Lisa, any comments, anything else from our group?
They're all on mute.
Oh
yeah, they are all on mute, aren't they?
You should be able to unmute yourself. I'll just make you all co-hosts. Okay, Callie, you're a co-host.
I was just gonna say I really liked the comment of like, what are we rushing towards? Like, there's always, so I read a really great book that was I'll look for the title and I can send it to you, Sue, later, but it was all about time and time management, but from the perspective of mindfulness. And like the issue is that the better we get at time management, the more we do, as opposed to there's no upside to becoming more efficient. You're just going to pick up, or you can just pick up more and more and more to do. And so you have to be really mindful and really choose to allow efficiency to give you space, or, you know, to be mindful with your time. And I feel like it's a really good dovetail. 4,000 weeks. It's called 4,000 weeks, which is a scary number because we've all expended about 2,000 of our weeks. So you got about 2,000 weeks left, which is horrifying.
I love that. Thank you.
Yeah, I'll look up the actual title, but that's his whole thing.
That is cool.
I also like the secretion of thoughts, Sue. I thought that was a perfect way to describe it. I'm like, yeah, constantly oozing, constantly.
Not pretty, right? We don't need to give our thoughts so much credit. You know, they're not so great after all. We don't need to cling to them.
And yeah, Callie, you just freaked us all out that we're halfway through our 4,000 weeks.
I know
Thanks
that
for
is kind of freaky, but interesting nonetheless.
And how do we be the dog? And I love that. I actually love that dog picture because the dog isn't mindless. His bubble isn't empty. He's not thinking about food. He's looking at the trees. He's there in the present moment. And I think that's the whole 4,000 weeks thing is you got 2,000 left. How do you really experience them instead of being in that future projection mode?
Yeah. Yeah, there's a beautiful meditation that I've led before. Hey, Lacey. Oh, with her dog. She's got her dog. And this meditation is, it walks you through, if you have a year to live, what would you want to do? If you've got a month to live, what would you want to do? If you've got a week, if you've got a day, if you've got a minute. And I mean, it's just the most powerful thing. We take for granted that we're going to be here forever and that our time is just endless. Can we be a little bit more deliberate? I think we can. And dogs are great. That's the bottom line. So.
Dogs are great. Well, thank you, Sue. Thank you for joining thank you for doing this for ESP. Really appreciate it. Thanks everybody for joining. And this will be recorded. So if you need to do that 4.5-minute exercise in the future, you can access that anytime. And without further ado, thank you. Enjoy the rest of your day and happy long weekend to all of you as well.
Thank you, Allison. Thank you all.